And now, broadcasting from deep behind enemy lines in the occupied territory of the Socialist Republic of California, your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate, Tim Donnelly.
Welcome to another edition of the Radio Free California Network. This is the Tim Donnelly Show, and we want to start the show today by standing with Charleston and standing in prayer for that city that is reeling from the horrific murder, the mass murder committed by a sick, twisted, racist thug who killed 9 innocent black people in a church in Charleston, South Carolina. Our prayers are with you. That's what we know. We will be discussing this situation a little bit later in the show, and believe me, it brings out a lot of emotions and a lot of issues. Certainly when the President of the United States, he actually did comment on it, even though his comments are going to be criticized on this program. I'll tell you that right now. One of his comments was, "This type of mass violence doesn't happen in other advanced countries, and it is in our power to do something about it." Well, when I hear someone like Barack Obama say we're going to do something about it, that does not give me peace. It does not give me confidence that we're going to do anything intelligent about it. It doesn't tell me that we're going to do the right thing, nor does it tell me we're going to do the effective thing. But I will get into that much more later on in the show. Right now, we are privileged to have with us Victor Davis Hanson, who is an extraordinary scholar on California and a visiting professor and many, many things. Also a farmer. Victor, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Thank you for having me.
No, my pleasure. You wrote, I don't know how you do this. You just have a way of putting words together and contrasting and exposing the complete hypocrisy of the left. I think their hypocrisy now knows no bounds. And you wrote an article for National Review Online called "Sexism and Racism Are Leftism."
Yes.
And it's really extraordinary how you pull together the hypocrisy and just expose it. And so I wanted to have you on to share some of your ideas. I know it might be a little difficult in light of what happened today in Charleston, South Carolina, but we're seeing the president do it right now. He's using this crisis. He didn't stop and say, "Hey, I'm not going to get on an airplane and go to 4 fundraisers in Los Angeles and go visit Charleston," which I would think most presidents would do something like that. But he's too busy, and he's made it clear that he does want to do something. And usually that's going to mean take freedom away from people who had nothing to do with it.
Well, I think there's a big difference between bias, that is, that in all of our lives we've seen examples of people, for whatever reason, don't evaluate people empirically because of their religion or their sex or their race, and the suffix ism, racism and sexism, that's a whole different category. That's an industry that's arisen on the part of the left. And why I say the left is, I think you and your audience knows that if David Letterman tomorrow said that Hillary Clinton's daughter had sex in a dugout with a New York Yankees player, or Bill Maher said that Hillary Clinton is a slutty flight attendant, the world would be outraged and their careers would be over. But yet they said both of those things about the Palin family, and nobody seemed to care. And by the same token, when we had the whole George Zimmerman problem with Trayvon Martin, had Zimmerman just done what other people do, that is ethnicize his name, he was part Afro-Peruvian, and if he had said that my name is not George, my mother's from Peru, it's Jorge, and my mother's name is Mesa, then the left would not have said this is a white-black issue. It would have been Jorge Mesa fights Trayvon Martin. What I'm getting at with us, and you know, we can go on and on and on about it, whether it's Elizabeth Warren adapting a particular persona, or Barack Obama as a first-year student at Occidental changing his acquired name, Barry Dunham or Barry Soetoro, back to Barack Obama. It is that if you have a particular leftist bent, then you can make the charge that somebody's sexist or racist in a way you can't if you don't have that cachet. So nobody in the Black Caucus is rallying to the side of Clarence Thomas, for example, or Carly Fiorina, because they're worried about sexism or racism. Sexism or racism have become, for the most part, an industry on the left that is used for political purposes. And it doesn't really have a lot to do with skin color or actual bias or perceived prejudice. It's a political movement that's designed to attain political ends.
So I like how you identify it as an industry. So they need more customers, and customers are really victims in this construct. So they essentially are creating victims by rewarding this kind of behavior.
I think so. I mean, everybody knows that if you don't have sexism and racism widespread across society and institutionalized, then you don't need a Chicano Studies Department. You don't need Al Sharpton on MSNBC. You don't need the Black Caucus. You don't need any of that. People just become people, and they assimilate, they integrate, they intermarry, and that's not what the left wants, because that brings no political dividend. It has no narrative for it. So what they always try to do is invent some type of grand sweeping cause by which they can manipulate it for political power. And what's their political agenda? It's always the same. It's to grow government, hire more people by the federal government, create bureaucracies, raise taxes, redistribute wealth. And sexism and racism are valuable for that ends, but they don't necessarily have anything to do with what we call prejudice. They can, but they usually don't. And I think people have to realize that, and that's why we saw this poor Dozogo woman who adopts a black persona in the way that Ward Churchill adopts a Native American persona, in the way that Elizabeth Warren changes her ethnic identification to get a job. Now, that's all not supposed to happen, because we're told white privilege is the keystone to success in America. But here are so-called white people who are deliberately faking ethnic identities for careerist purposes.
Well, aren't they lying?
Know that otherwise, yeah, they're right.
They're lying.
I mean,
they're cheating.
Right. They're lying, but they understand something, that besides all the rhetoric of white privilege, they understand that in the elite careerist trajectories, being non-white is advantageous. Without that ethnic identification, Elizabeth Warren probably would have never made it to Harvard Law School. Ward Churchill would have never been hired, just if he was Ward Churchill, old white guy, at University of Colorado.
Right. He's the guy that hates America. I mean, he has said some of the most vile, vicious things about this country, and yet he got there by faking.
The key is to try to find yourself, A, as a minority, and B, as a victim in some way, and then to translate that into careerist success or political power. And it's all predicated on the idea that you can make the argument that white people, so-called white people, all think alike and they're all prejudicial, and you need self-appointed censors, adjudicators, whatever term we want to use, to stop them. And once people understand that, then we all try to add accents to our name. We try to change our accent, as Harry Reid said, and Joe Biden did about Barack Obama. We try to adopt a persona that allows us to be a victim and allows us to get political power thereby. And if it will continue until people say simply, it has no effect on me. I judge people by not their skin color or their religion or their gender.
It actually has a reverse effect on me. I was watching television with my wife last night. I was watching Master Chef, and it was interesting. There was this incredible dichotomy. The winner, the loser, has to pick who is going to face this pressure challenge. So she didn't pick the weakest people. She picked, because she's not afraid of them, she picked the strongest and most capable. So these 4 strong, capable people had to cook the favorite steak for the host, and so the pressure's on. And what was interesting is one guy hit it out of the park. I mean, he hit that perfect home run, perfect steak. You could tell he was very confident. He cooked it perfectly and got praise for it, but it was like a blind taste test, so nobody knew what was going on. But in the end, there was a woman, kind of heavyset, and I don't know what her ethnicity was, but she came in second. So she and this other guy got to go upstairs, and they were free and clear. As they were interviewing her, she went on to say, well, this is really important to me, being a Latina. And I thought, well, I didn't know you were Latina. I don't care that you're Hispanic or Latino or whatever the heck that is. I don't know why you even brought it up. You accomplished something. You prevailed by the merit that you brought to the contest. But now I'm not rooting for you anymore because this offends me.
Yeah, I mean, and she obviously brought it up because she's not sure that you would know that otherwise, and she wanted a little extra perk or a little extra edge by doing that. It's like watching the local news on TV in California. You'll see a broadcaster, you have no interest in what their ethnic identity is, and they start trilling their R's and overemphasizing the accentuation of their last name to give a message that they are a minority and therefore they're due to special consideration. And it's all predicated on the idea that people are going to give that special consideration. And if people would say to Elizabeth Warren, this is a joke, you can talk about high cheekbones all you want, but you are not Native American. And if you were, it wouldn't matter anyway. And if we could say to Ward Churchill, you're a complete faker, as we could say to Mrs. Dozical in Seattle, you've just invented this victim persona that's totally fabricated, et cetera, or we could judge people on what they actually say and do, like Al Sharp going to be the chief representative of racial matters for the Obama administration, then people should say, this is his record, this is what he said, this is the sexist, homophobic, racist things he said. He's not qualified to be such a prominent spokesman. And we need to and we need to evolve to that level where we are empirical and we just look at people on their achievement, and not what they say or what they represent. And because if we don't, we're going to get these constant reinventions of identity and all of these allegations that I'm black or that I'm Hispanic or that I'm this or that. And it's, here in California, the University of California, as the Ivy League, can't figure out if you're Asian or you're too successful. We'll have to use a quota against you so we get more blacks and get more Hispanics. We can't go after whites because whites are not represented as much as they are in the general population at the University of California. Therefore, let's go after Asians. And if we don't watch it, I mean, there's not a good record historically of diverse nations making it. Unity is always what people want. It's much easier if you have a uniform population. But if you have a diverse population, then it's the responsibility of everybody to not emphasize difference, but to ignore it.
Victor, can I
judge people?
Can I hold you over for one break?
Yes.
We are talking with Victor Davis Hanson on his latest article. Be right back after this break.
I'm Barack Obama, and I don't always listen to talk radio. But when I do, it's the Tim Donnelly Show.
If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Victor Davis Hanson, who is the Martin and Lily Anderson Senior Fellow in Residence in Classics Military History at the Hoover Institution, Stanford University. He is a professor of classics emeritus, or was, at Cal State University, Fresno. Nationally syndicated columnist, has a bio that is much longer than I can read, but you can tell just by the way he talks. He's kind of like a walking encyclopedia of wisdom. Victor, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Thank you.
Your article covers a whole breadth of different issues, and it's entitled "Sexism and Racism Equal Leftism," and you point out the tremendous hypocrisy in terms of sexism where Hillary Clinton is concerned, because she advances on the back of Bill Clinton, who is a serial abuser and takes advantage of women, and yet the left, the Democrats, claim that they are the protectors of women, and they're always looking to root out sexism unless it's by one of their own.
Yes, again, it's there's no such thing really as sexism as a national movement. There's the liberal embrace of something like that only applies to people on the conservative side. So if say, to take an example, if Sarah Palin's husband had been a serial philanderer, especially had manipulated subordinates or interns who worked for him, she would have never gotten the nomination as vice president. But with Bill Clinton, the left rallied to his side by saying, well, he was just exuberant, or he just did a little bit too much. Or if Sarah Palin had just sort of tagged along with her husband and followed his career and used his name when it was convenient and tried to piggyback on his political success, and they would say, you know what, she's a 1950s housewife type of person without her own individual initiative or persona. But that didn't happen. And it didn't happen because it was felt that Hillary was useful for social change, and therefore the sexist rules of sexism don't apply to her. She's exempt from that. And that sends a message. And so everybody understands that in the university, for example, to take one institution, that you're better off for your career to be left than right, liberal than conservative. Because if you're conservative and you say something untoward by accident in class, or you joke around, you're going to be all through. But if you're a leftist, then that's considered incidental, a slip of the tongue, and people react to that reality. So if Harry Reid or Joe Biden say something absolutely racist in their characterization of Barack Obama, they know that it won't ever impact their careers because they're die-in-the-wool liberals. And people have to stand up and say there is no such thing as a absolute standard of sexism or racism. There's something that the left has created to use as a political weapon, but it doesn't have any empirical reality.
Well, it is interesting. It's interesting that the true believers are embracing Bernie Sanders. He's gone from like 4% in the polls to 31% at the same time when Hillary Clinton has fallen from 52 down to 41. So she's barely 10 points ahead of a self-avowed socialist. But see, he's a true believer, so he can champion the cause of the left, and he's not a hypocrite, or at least, not as well known. I don't know him very well, but whereas Hillary, they're pillaring her for carrying water for Wall Street, I think
Hillary's problem with the left right now is that she's not supposed to be so transparently hypocritical. They didn't mind if she's hypocritical because they're hypocritical, but what her problem was, she lectured hedge fund operators why her daughter earned $15 million for a hedge fund and is married to a gigantic hedge fund director, and she made $10,000 a minute speaking to particular Wall Street groups. So they're saying, wow, Hillary's talking about transparency, populism, but she's a 0.1%er, and that's really hard for us to take, and she's going to hurt the cause. Now, the majority don't believe that. They're still going to go with her, but there's a large number on the left that is worried about the hypocrisy. It's not just suggested, it's blatant. And so she's going to have some problem, especially if you get a Republican candidate that can't be caricatured as an elitist, but is sort of a brawler and a man of the people, and says, you know what, the Democratic Party is the elite Wall Street party now. It's a plutocratic, wealthy man's party, and they are a party of the very wealthy and the very poor, and they've forgotten the middle class whom they despise.
That they have.
That's very effective.
Victor, thank you for coming on with us today. Victor Davis Hanson, sexism and racism are leftism. Brilliant. 323-746-TALK. If you've been listening long to the Tim Donnelly Show, you know that we talk constantly about defending freedom and about defending our natural and inalienable rights. The Firearms Policy Coalition is a partner of the Tim Donnelly Show. But more than that, they're on the front lines every day in Sacramento and all across the state, in the courts, defending your Second Amendment right. That is a natural right that the government merely acknowledged in the Second Amendment. If you value your freedom, then you need to join Firearms Policy Coalition. Become a member. I'm a member, and I'm happy to support an organization that is doing such an incredible job. Go to joinfpc.org. The Tim Donnelly Show sent you. Or go to timdonnellyshow.com and click on the FPC link to make it easy. But whatever you do, join today. FPC.org.
Like a star that can't wait for a night. I hate to think I've been blinded, baby. What can I see tonight?
So the Charleston victims have not even been buried, and the President of the United States has lost no time in politicizing this tragedy. This is a mass tragedy. They will always call it a mass shooting, but it is mass murder. And the President of the United States, you can hear it on the news breaks, says, I stand before you once again with a mass shooting because innocent people were killed because it's too easy to get a gun. That's what he said, because it's too easy to get a gun. Guns are too readily available. Well, I just, right there, I just have to stop and say, okay. Because his other comment is, there are no, this type of mass violence, I had to write it down to make sure I could sound as intelligent as him. This type of mass violence doesn't happen in other advanced countries, and so it is in our power to do something about it. Really. So it is in our power to do something. Those words should give you pause. Those words should send a chill down your back or up your neck. Because whenever this president says we're going to do something about it, it's always the wrong thing. So let's review the facts as we know them. You have 9 innocent black people in a church in Charleston, South Carolina, ages 27 to 87, who were killed. There was one victim who was left alive, whose job it was, according to the murderer. And I don't say the name of the murderers because I don't want to give them any publicity, because that's what they want. So this sick, twisted, racist thug told this young woman, your job is to go tell everyone what this was all about. And what it was all about is that he hates black people. And he made that clear. And he said, you are taking over our country, you are raping our daughters, and he obviously is filled not only with hate, but with an evil spirit. Now, I don't know if President Obama has the capacity to understand that there's things that government cannot control. Government cannot control evil. It cannot strike evil out of the heart of man. And what this president will do, if the past is any indication of the future, is he's talking about more gun control. So let's review. This young man, hate-filled, filled with evil, filled with an evil spirit, bent on committing murder, is, I mean, anybody who could kill people in a church. He sat through the prayer service and then stood up and slaughtered them. He reloaded 5 times. Now think about that. Think about if you were in that church. Someone comes in and you think maybe this individual is there to worship with you, and he stands up and pulls a weapon and just begins slaughtering innocent human beings. There's not anyone on planet Earth that wants that to happen. But is taking away a firearm that could have stopped that slaughter, that could have prevented that tragedy. Is that the do something that makes any sense? Better to do nothing than to do harm. If the government is going to further infringe our right to defend our own lives and to defend the lives of other innocent people, then the government will actually put more lives at risk and could potentially create new victims, target individuals, and I still cannot believe that the President of the United States did not divert his airplane and go to Charleston and stand with the people of Charleston. But I guess he had 4 fundraisers in Los Angeles, and he has a speech in Los Angeles, and he has a golf date in Los Angeles. Are you as shocked as I am that he is on his way to 4 fundraisers right now?
Yes. And no. Because of his behavior with the last couple months. I mean, I feel like there's been a couple of times where he should have said something or done something and nothing was said or done. Yeah, no,
there's a moment for the president, just like when President George W. Bush, who I was not a fan of, when he stood up at 9/11 and he said to the country, and the country was hanging on his every word because this is the president. He is speaking to not only all of the American people, he's speaking to the world. And George Bush, as dumb as people thought he was, as idiotic as the media made him out to be, and he's not, by the way, he seized on that moment and he spoke for all of us. We were all Americans in that moment. This president only speaks when there is a political event at which he can advance his ideology and make points at the expense of his political opposition or whom he considers his political enemies. And he does it without even blinking. He does it in a way that is so transparent. And this ticks me off because if you think about it, if he were to say, hey, maybe we ought to change the law, or not we, but you in South Carolina ought to change your law and allow guns in churches. Because the move is to ban guns in schools, ban guns on college campuses, ban guns in government buildings, ban guns everywhere and anywhere except the completely insane, pathologically bent individual who is wired and has been looking forward to for months to that moment of glory when they slaughter the innocent, and they only go into places where they know they are gun-free zones and they are not going to be confronted with a gunman or a gunwoman or a citizen who is armed and defending their life and the lives of others.
I agree with that, but I also feel like anybody that has that mindset, they're going to do and they're going to get what they want however they feel fit.
Right. No, I agree completely. That's the whole point. Mm-hmm. You cannot stop someone who is hell-bent on murder by disarming the victims.
Right.
President Obama is talking about disarming more people. And the only people you will disarm are those who abide the law, because they will listen to your laws. There is no law for someone who is a murderer, who has already decided to commit. Even in the scriptures, it says, once you have decided in your heart to commit murder, you have already done it. And all that matters, it isn't about the gun or the knife or the BMW or the baseball bat or whatever. But it did strike me, in particular, that, and I can't imagine what it's like to have someone stand up who you thought was there. You were encouraged. Somebody from another community, because this was a black church, and this individual is a young white man, comes in and joins you, and you're thinking, wow, what a sweet young boy. It's so nice. Especially, look, I've been to a lot of meetings that have a lot of people with gray hair, okay? And when somebody young comes in, everybody gets excited. So I bet that it was no different in this church. It's just human nature. And you're excited. You're like, wow, the Lord is touching someone's heart. The message is getting through. This is exciting. He sat right next to the pastor that he murdered. The shock when that individual stands up and starts firing, I'm not saying that I don't know what I would have done. But let me tell you something. If he stood up and started hitting people with a baseball bat, I guarantee you somebody would have tackled him. But there's something terrifying about a gun. It shoots out a flame as well as a bullet, but it also makes an incredibly loud noise. And most people are unfamiliar with firearms. But if you'd had one individual in there who was not only aware but competent and had one on him, lives could have potentially been saved. But by making our churches and our schools and our government buildings and every space we possibly can a gun-free zone except for those who are bent on mass murder, we're putting life at risk. And that right there, I'm going to get into, in the next segment, I'm going to get into his statement about how this type of mass violence has never happened, or doesn't happen in other developed nations other than the United States. 323-746-TALK if you want to talk. Tim Donnelly Show will continue. You are listening to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, former California State Assemblyman and Governor candidate Tim Donnelly. By the way, we stream live at timdonnellyshow.com. So if you missed any portion of this show, it repeats immediately following and continues to loop right up until 3 o'clock tomorrow. And on the weekends, which, by the way, can you believe it? We're almost there. The loop includes all 5 shows from the previous week. So while you're out there working in your garage, you could have your phone or computer tuned, but only if you go to timdonnellyshow.com, click on Listen 24/7, and you can catch up. You can also connect with us on Facebook and Twitter through our website. Before the break, we were talking about the president's reaction to this horrific tragedy, this mass killing in a Charleston church by a deranged young man who's clearly filled with a hateful, evil spirit. He is a twisted, racist thug. So for all of those of you who were upset when I used the word thug to describe the behavior of those protesting, I'm sorry, they weren't protesting, they were looting in Baltimore. I'm using the thug word on a white youth who is acted in a way, thug is too nice of a word. I heard Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General of the United States, say that this was an egregious crime. This was not an egregious crime. An egregious crime is when somebody bilks a little old lady out of her life savings. An egregious crime is when someone robs a single mother and takes off, carjacks and takes off with the kid in the back seat. That's egregious. Putting the kid at risk, robbing the mom. This is an unspeakable evil. To take the lives of 9 innocent people, and I bet you he would have killed more if he could have. I don't know what stopped him. Haven't read all those details yet. But these were people who are worshiping God. They were in a church. This is a violation of a sacred space. This goes much deeper than that. Our president gave no acknowledgement that he had any understanding at the depth of this event, and jumped on an airplane headed to LA after giving a 4-minute press conference because he's got 4 fundraisers, a speech, and a golf game to get to. It's just business as usual for him. But he did make it clear he will not let this tragedy go to waste. He intends to push his ideology. He intends to push his political agenda. Here's the problem. He's pushing it based on a lie. He has said something that is patently, provably false. This type of mass violence doesn't happen in other countries, other advanced countries, excuse me. And it is in our power to do something about it. I've posed this question to this audience before and got many intelligent answers. But you almost have to be brain dead to not be able to name a recent tragedy, mass shooting in another country. There was the one in France where they killed all those unarmed people. The cops didn't even have guns. I mean, everybody was unarmed, and they didn't like what they said about the Prophet Muhammad, and they slaughtered him. We've had all kinds of shootings all over the world. I decided to Google and Googled mass shootings, found a Reuters story dated July 20th, 2012. More than half of the citations are European nations. So either the president is A, lying, or B, considers countries like Britain, Australia, Germany, Finland, the Netherlands, Norway to be third world countries, not advanced countries. Maybe he doesn't know his geography. He certainly doesn't know how many states there are in the United States. But the most horrific one on the list, and this one was missing all kinds of events, but they limited it to 1 or 2 shooters. So they totally missed that horrific, insane shooting in Russia, which I'll go into later on. We're going to have Dr. A.W.R. Hawkins coming up after this break to delve deeper into this story. Whatever you do, don't touch that dial.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, Ozell Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. Ozell custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, Ozell Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. Ozell Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. Ozell Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. Ozell Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. Ozell Jewelers.
Welcome back. We're talking about the mass murder that occurred in Charleston, the horrific events as they have unfolded today. And I opened the show by saying that we stand with Charleston against this unspeakable evil. We stand with you in prayer for not only the victims, but also the citizens of that great city. The President of the United States has stated that these kinds of this type of mass violence doesn't happen in other advanced countries. That is his statement. That is the statement of the most powerful, arguably the most powerful man on the planet. The only problem is it's completely, utterly, absolutely, unequivocally false. It is a lie. He has to know that it's a lie because he said it when there was the last mass shooting. And here's the diabolical part and the reason that I raised this issue. First of all, I asked you if you could name a handful of killings. People brought up France with the Charlie Hebdo shootings. Somebody else brought up Anders Behring Breivik of Norway. On July 22nd of 2011, he murdered with a gun 69 people at a youth camp in Norway. I think Norway is an advanced country, last time I checked. He intended to kill everyone there, which was something like 600 people. But there are mass killings in every single advanced country that you can name if you're willing to do the simple research and make a phone call or use Google. But I wanted to get my good friend, Dr. A.W.R. Hawkins' perspective on this. And so we have tracked him down in Texas. Dr. Hawkins, welcome back to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Tim, thank you. Great to be with you.
It is. And sorry that it's under such circumstances, but one thing that I can't get over is the speed at which the left advances a false narrative. Earlier today, as I was just talking about the president saying this doesn't happen in other advanced countries, despite mountains of evidence that it does. In July of 2012, Reuters put up a listing of the last of mass shootings in the last 25 years that were committed by one or two shooters, and more than half of them were committed in major advanced European countries.
Right.
And
Right. No, you're right.
And on Twitter, Yahoo News, Mother Jones, Slate, and a whole bunch of others. Some of these are considered mainstream and others are considered opinion blogs of the left, have all retweeted this quote, but they have to know that it is a lie. But Americans will eat it up, and then they will accept more government interference and more government control in their lives vis-a-vis gun control.
Right. Well, some Americans will. The same Americans who voted for Obama will be open or will be susceptible to that. But, there has been a change. I just say that I'm not by nature an optimist. I'm by nature what my dad called himself when he was alive. I'm a realist. And I understand that this is an opportunity for the left to spin and politicize things for their gain. But I also understand that following Sandy Hook, they did the same thing, and they hurt themselves. And they have not recovered from that hurt. So there's a good chance they're going to keep hurting themselves with this. That being said, you are right, my friend. There are some people who will listen to what Obama is saying, and they will take it as gospel truth and believe that the problem was not the gunman, but the gun. The problem was not his access to an unarmed group of people in a church. They won't think about the unarmed people being problematic. They will think about the fact that there were guns. That was the problem. And so for those people, we have to try to win that argument. And I try to win it every day. I know you try to win it. But for some of these people, that argument is unwinnable. And they're going to believe whatever Obama says. And you're exactly right. Those people are going to support more gun control. They're going to call for more gun control. And we have to hold the GOP's feet to the fire and remind them, we gave you a majority, a sweeping, thunderous majority in the midterm elections 2014 for a reason. One of the reasons being you fight gun control tooth and nail. And this is a situation in which to fight it.
Well, if their fight on Obamacare is any indication of the GOP's iron will, I think it's called iron will wanting or iron wilting. But let me switch gears with you for a minute, because I want your help to break down what happened in Charleston. Based on what we know, we have an individual who was given a gun by his father, 45. In the church, he sat through the service. Then he got up to murder the people, including the pastor who he sat right next to, reloaded 5 times. And this is in a state, South Carolina, where carrying a firearm into a church is illegal. And so, obviously, if they say, hey, we want to pass a new law to protect people because of Charleston, it just doesn't work.
No. You don't. You're exactly right, Tim. I'm not cutting you off. I'm just making the point because my blood boils when I hear what you're saying, and it doesn't boil toward you. All you're doing is reiterating the idiocy of the left, and you're exactly right. What they've done, and I do not hold Governor Haley responsible for this. She didn't do it, but this law that makes it illegal to have a gun in church is silly. Anytime there's a gun-free zone, anytime, I don't care if it's church, if it's a school, I don't care if it's a Walmart. It's not Walmart, but I'm just saying, I don't care where it is. When you have a gun-free policy, you are advertising for a mass shooting. You are literally begging for a mass shooting because you are telling a would-be criminal, if you're looking for a soft target, we've got one for you. We meet every Wednesday night here at church, and we'll be here Sunday morning if you miss us on Wednesday. That is how simple it gets when you promise the criminal you're unarmed, but he or she can be armed. People at some point have to understand. Last time you and I were together, Tim, on your radio show, we talked about this. We have to quit legislating per criminal behavior. We have to understand a gun-free zone will never apply to a criminal. That is why he or she by nature is called a criminal. A gun-free zone will only keep the law-abiding father or mother disarmed, which means not only themselves but also their children are at risk. That's what we saw last night, and a terrible price was paid. If we want to do something legislatively, I'm all for it.
Let me make a suggestion.
Remove gun-free zones.
Let me make a suggestion. I would like to make a suggestion that you cannot have a church meeting, if you're going to leave the door open, well, I guess it doesn't matter whether the door's open or not, unless somebody there is armed.
Right.
And trained.
Right.
Somebody has a CCW.
Right.
And if you legislated that, now, for those of you who are planning on voting for Jeb Bush or Hillary Clinton, let me break it down for you. This is a hypothetical. But because I don't want to force anything on anybody who wants to have a church. I believe in freedom. I don't want to see the evaporation of free society. But the only way that this could have been prevented, because you and I could never envision that kind of evil coming into a church. Now it's happened. So now that it's happened, just like when 9/11 happened and a couple of crazy guys, insane Islamic jihadis with razor knives, were willing to kill everyone on those planes and anyone they could on the ground and in the buildings. And so these things obviously can happen. But the only way you could have stopped this guy is literally having a weapon of equal stature. You need to have somebody there with a gun, because it's really hard to deal with a guy who's able to fire at you from quite a distance away or right up close without having equal firepower.
Right. You know, I'll say this. I want to give an example of the state of Kentucky. That's where I originally grew up before I came to Texas. In the state of Kentucky, what they did is they passed a law many years ago, and by many I mean 8 to 9, but they passed a law that even if you don't have a concealed carry permit, even if you don't, Tim, if you are an officer in the church, and that would mean you're a deacon, you're an elder, you're a pastor, a teaching elder, whatever, you're an officer in the church, you can carry a gun to church. And the reason they did that is they recognized that churches were soft targets. And they wanted to be sure, the exact point you're making, Tim, they wanted to be sure if you came in the front door of the Baptist church in Louisville, Kentucky, when you came in with your rifle, you were greeted by a deacon with his 9mm, and he would be ready for you. And
Wow.
That is how we need to handle this.
Exactly. Hey, we've got to take a quick break. Can I hold you over?
Sure, I'd like to stay. Thank you.
That's Dr. A.W.R. Hawkins, and we will continue this conversation right after this break. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Radio Free California Network. I am your host, former California State Assemblyman Tim Donnelly. We are talking with Dr. A.W.R. Hawkins, who is a renowned columnist and also a great American. And Dr. Hawkins, we were talking before, and you mentioned a Kentucky law that enables and empowers individuals in a church, officers of the church, to actually carry, even if they don't have a CCW, because in their wisdom, the legislature in Kentucky, far ahead of where we are in California, who is moving in the opposite direction, understood that, look, cops can't be everywhere. You cannot prevent the unexpected unless somebody is present who has the capacity to return fire. And yet in California, they're actually looking to make it illegal. There's a bill here to make it illegal for anyone with a CCW, former law enforcement or not, former military or not, to carry on a K-12 campus in the state of California.
Oh, that's a ridiculous law. I've been following that. I think it's by Lois Wolk, senator.
That's right.
Who's pushing that. And yeah, you know, right now in California, it's not advertised, so a lot of people don't know it, but if you have a concealed carry permit, there is an exemption so that you can carry on a college campus. Now, the senator does not mention one crime, Tim, not one crime that a law-abiding citizen has committed. She can't. There isn't one. But nonetheless, she says that because California concealed carry permits are, and this is a paraphrase of what she said, because they're so easy to get, that means that they are not trustworthy enough. That if you have a concealed carry permit, that's no guarantee that you won't act criminally on campus. I mean, it is a perfect example of what if. We have evidence. I mean, we have hard evidence that people with concealed carry permits are among the most law-abiding citizens in the nation, including people who are college age with concealed carry permits. Not only that, you have empirical evidence that no such person has committed a crime in California. But they want to do all they can, the Democrats, that is, the Democrats want to do all they can to disarm you. And that is the lesson, and that should bother every Californian. It should bother every American. It should bother anybody in the world who loves freedom.
Well, absolutely. And look, let's just be practical. Let's forget about Democrat, Republican for a minute and just think people. In I believe it was Virginia Tech, where that horrific shooting occurred, and I believe 35 people were killed.
2007.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we know that mass murderers are often drawn to college campuses for a number of reasons. But one, because their people are young. Two, because maybe they go to the college, or they used to. But also, it's a large gathering of people. But they also know that they're gun-free zones. Guns are not allowed on many college campuses. And if there were a higher deployment of those with CCWs, and especially if there was a little bit of coordinated training provided by the university for those who do have a CCW, then you would have potentially, let's say in a campus of 30,000 people, you might have 100 or you might have 200 that are actually trained, armed, who could be potentially in the exact area where the danger occurs. And if they know they're not going to get sued, well, I don't know if a threat of a lawsuit would stop anybody with enough intelligence to get a CCW. Isn't going to be stopped by worrying about a lawsuit. They're just going to pull their gun and try to save lives. But why in the world would they want to go the other direction?
Right. Oh, it makes no sense. You know, as you were talking, and it's a slight difference, but it's still the same type of point on high school campuses or primary school campuses. Like you saw what happened at Sandy Hook, December 14, 2012. Adam Lanza had over 4 minutes. Oh, and I hate to say it, it makes me cringe. Over 4 minutes, Tim. He didn't have to worry about whether those kids were shooting back, about whether those teachers were shooting back. He knew that they wouldn't be because they were law-abiding citizens in a gun-free zone. Now, fast forward 1 year, Tim, to Arapahoe High School in Colorado. Arapahoe High School reacted to these things by putting an armed guard in their school. One armed resource officer, what was his name? Carl Halverson Pearson, came in that school in December 2013. His intent was to kill people. His entire act from start to finish lasted 80 seconds because the armed guard heard the shot, ran toward the shot. While everyone else ran away, the armed guard ran toward the shot, confronted Pearson gun to gun, and Pearson, being the coward that he was, took his own life so that officer couldn't shoot him. I don't care who killed him. The good news is that the attack ended, and it ended why? Because there was a gun in that school in the hands of a law-abiding citizen who was determined to save lives. There is no way to argue against that. There is no way to belittle the actions of that resource officer. There is no way to say the children at that school would have been safer had that resource officer not been there. There is no way to say it, and that is how we must approach this matter.
Absolutely. And I would further back up, and we've had the discussion before, that if you're going to create a gun-free school zone, we're going to create a liability. We're going to sue you, those who create this gun-free zone, and say that you have no right as an American to protect yourself. That is a violation of a fundamental natural right that wasn't given to us by government. It was given to us by God. It was recognized by government in the Second Amendment. and also in the Declaration of Independence, where it says that government shall secure these rights, the inalienable ones, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. If I can't defend my life or the life of my loved ones, and it's because the government has forbidden me to exercise that fundamental right to keep and bear arms, especially in this day and age, we need to start lawsuits against them and hold them accountable until they stop putting citizens, innocent citizens, like what happened in Charleston, at risk.
Right. No, you're right. Think about it this way. Your listeners, this will resonate. Just think about it. Let's pretend that you were at some type of meeting. I don't even care what type of meeting it is, but let's just say that by government mandate, you're not allowed to speak. Let's just say you're not allowed to speak. Let's say you have to take some type of medicine. Well, they give you a medicine to which you're allergic, but you're not allowed to tell them you're allergic to that medicine. You have a terrible reaction, and it creates in you a situation where, for the rest of your life, you're in a wheelchair or unable to work or whatever. Your argument is going to be, I was denied my right
That's
to
right.
freedom of speech.
That is
and you're going to sue over that. And the same thing applies to the Second Amendment.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks for coming on, Dr. Hawkins. Hey, if you like shooting as much as I do, you've probably been to a lot of ranges. Unless you visited Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you've never seen anything like it. On the way there, you'll find yourself taking pictures as you traverse the majestic Azusa Canyon and wind your way up into the Angeles National Forest. With over 600 acres, including 19 private ranges, there's something for everyone. There's rifle and pistol ranges for beginners, right up to advanced shooters. And there's plenty of spaces to shoot sporting clay. You can make a family day of it, or you can bring a group for team building exercises. Bring a picnic lunch. On the weekends, they provide lunch. And don't worry, they always have ammo in case you forget yours or run out. One thing I can guarantee is that once you visited my friends at Burro Canyon Shooting Park, you'll be hooked and you'll keep coming back. BurroCanyon.com is their website, or call them at 626-910-1344, 626-910-1344. You're tuned in to the Radio Free California Network. This is Tim Donnelly, your host. And we're talking about this move by the left to... I like what our first guest, Victor Davis Hanson, had to say. The title of his article is Sexism and Racism Are Leftism. Because in essence, there's only these pathologies are not sweeping the nation, and they're not trying to stamp out racism or sexism. They simply use it as a tool against those. I'm not going to call them conservatives. I'm going to say those who wish to live free from government interference. And I still cannot believe that every media outlet is willing to give Barack Obama, President of the United States, a pass when he says something that is patently, provably, unequivocally false. It is a No, it isn't a misstatement. It is a misleading statement. And if you have to build your case to deprive law-abiding people of freedom, and you build your case on a lie, then you're really, there's something wrong with you. That would be your first instinct. Because any logical person could say, if I was sitting in that church, if you were sitting in that church and you were armed, or let's just say that you found a gun under the pew, You were sitting there, sometimes in church you get a little bored, you're reading everything. Oh, okay, we're having problems in the production booth. Is that what you do in church? Do you read your phone? I bet. Oh, she doesn't want to say it on air.
No.
Noah?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I do not read my phone in church.
I'm glad to hear. Well, you do know some people have the Bible on their phone. And it looks so weird to see people reading on their phones. But let's say that you're sitting in that church and you found a gun under the pew. It's one of the only things that could have been used to stop this individual, because most people in our society today are terrified of guns. They they've never been in combat. They don't understand what's happening. But it would have taken someone to act to stop it. I mean, the first person gets shot and you go, wow, whoa. You literally have seconds to respond. And I'm sure that more and more information will come out as to what actually happened and who did what, and we'll bring that to you. But when the president goes out and his first shot is at the law-abiding Americans, who he's already tried to deprive of their right to keep and bear arms, a fundamental natural right, by the way, and he uses falsehoods to advance his cause, that I find that really offensive. And I find that's a greater threat to your livelihood, to your safety, to your freedom, to your life and your pursuit of happiness, and certainly to your liberty, than any deranged random gunman. Think about that. When the government decides it's the government's business to come in and deprive law-abiding people, to create, as Dr. Hawkins describes, target zones. Every church is now going to be a potential target zone for those who are deranged. And those who are deranged, there really is only one thing to do with them. They ought to be just dragged out back in an alley. If you pulled them out of the crime scene and you have 10 witnesses who said, yeah, he's the guy who shot everybody, they should drag him out in the alley and shoot him in the head and throw his carcass in a dumpster. He doesn't deserve to live, because if you had an animal that attacked humans that had a disease, what's that? What is it? Rabies? I'm trying to think of. Yeah, if you had a rabid dog or a rabid animal, coyote or whatever, that is clearly out of its mind and goes to attack, you don't negotiate with it. You don't analyze. I don't want to know why he did this. I don't want to know his history. I don't want to know about his pathetic little life. I want him dead, because he does not deserve to live. He showed no. He showed no humanity. To be able to shoot a pastor after you heard the pastor preaching because you're so possessed with hatred, it's well, there is, in other news, there is an interesting development with the Census Bureau. It's a little bit related. The Census Bureau is experimenting with the idea of eliminating the term race, or the word race, altogether in its 2020 survey, according to a report with the Pew Research Center. As part of its final push before finalizing its 2020 wording, test census forms will be sent to 1.2 million households later this fall, and without any references to race or origin. Instead, the forms will ask, which categories describe person one? According to Pew, they're looking to possibly replace the word race with origin. Well, why don't they just eliminate the word race and put human? If everyone's human, who cares what color you are? I mean, I don't know about you, but I get really offended when they want to count color because they're only using that for their own purposes, for government purposes, to continually control us, to justify another social program that is race-based, or they like to reintroduce their own version of affirmative action, as we heard earlier with Victor Davis Hanson. And but instead it should just be a meritocracy. So there was one, I'm trying to find it in my stack of stuff. I think I wrote all over it. Oh, here it is. Yeah. There is one news organization. I don't even know if you can call them a news organization. Salon. White America must answer for Charleston church massacre. With a manhunt still underway for the person responsible for the massacre of 9 people in a Charleston, South Carolina church, already the left is exploiting the shooting deaths of innocents to further their political agenda. Salon is demanding all of white America answer for these murders. Story still developing. At present, Charleston authorities are reporting this mass shooting and likely right-wing domestic terrorist assault is a hate crime. While this horrific event is one more murderous and racist blow to the African-American community. This is on Salon.com, by the way. While this horrific event is one more murderous and racist blow to the African-American community in Charleston, the killing of Walter Scott by a white thug cop being the most high-profile and recent offense, the reporting on the mass shooting at Emmanuel Baptist is an additional affront via the white racial frame as practiced by the mainstream news media. That was written by a Daily Beast editor and someone on Salon.com. These are leftist organizations, and they push their agenda without apology. They don't wait for the facts. They don't care about the facts because they're all about inciting hatred and enmity between peoples. You know, I think after what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, we need a lot more of something else. We don't need people to incite other people. We don't need people to promulgate legislative solutions to problems that only God can solve. Government can't fix this. Government could do no harm. Government could say, hey, in South Carolina, maybe we ought to let you bring your guns to church if you have a CCW. They could certainly do that. Wouldn't take much. It would make every churchgoer safer. Period. End of story. What is the Hippocratic Oath? First, do no harm. Maybe the government ought to adopt that. Hey, we'll take your calls right after this break. 323-746-TALK. 323-746-8255. Hey, welcome back to the Radio Free California Network. This is your host, Tim Donnelly. We're going to go straight to the phones. We've got Stephen in Fontana. Stephen, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Hi, thank you, sir. I just wanted to comment on the issue of CCW and having a firearm, having a firearm in places of worship. I currently do have a CCW, and I do actually bring my firearm with me when I go to a place of worship. I don't announce that to everybody. I don't want to freak anyone out. But knowing that I'm prepared should an incident arise is very, it gives us a little more empowerment. Are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, Stephen, you're breaking up a little bit, but yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think you're not alone. I think there certainly a lot of I have friends that go to churches where there's a lot of law enforcement. Well, law enforcement generally tend to carry at all times. It's foolish not to. As a matter of fact, some agencies require it. So I think
that's true.
I think that what this is going to wake up in America is not a movement toward more gun control, but a movement toward understanding that we as citizens have a certain responsibility to ensure our own safety. We need to understand government cannot and should not provide security for us at all times, because in order to do so, we have to give up our individual and essential liberties.
Yeah, and the other side of that is, or part of that is, ISIS, they have already made it clear that they are targeting religious groups. And we know that ISIS operatives are here in our country, and they're sleeper cells, and, a lot of churches would be considered soft targets for them. And so all the more reason for us to be... I am a Christian, and I've battled an argument in my head that I think people would say to me, which is, well, Jesus told Peter to put away his sword, but at the same time, he never told him to get rid of your sword. He meant put it back in the sheath.
Stephen, that is a great point, and I appreciate that. I'm Stephen from Fontana. I'm going to have to let you go. We're just having a real hard time hearing you, but you make some great points. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. Thank you.
He told Peter to sheathe his sword, but not get rid of it. He didn't tell him to plow it into or turn it into a plowshare. But now we'll go to we've got Lee on the line from Apple Valley. Lee, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Thanks. What a great show you have today.
Well, thank you.
I am unfortunately going to change the subject a little bit. We
believe in free speech here, so we'll let you change the subject.
We have a local situation. You hit on the water problem created by our noble government up in Sacramento. Well, if you hearken back to 1978, 79, 76, 7, 8, 9, it was the same moonbeam that stopped all freeway building. He wanted to get us all out of our cars or into public transit. As a result, they stopped building the 210 freeway, and it ended in Laverne, and they dumped all of that traffic onto Foothill Boulevard, which screwed up the whole neighborhoods along the foothills. But in addition, they postponed all of this freeway construction that's presently going on. That was in the plans way back then, 25 years ago. And as a result, they gave up the freeway right away and then had to buy it back at huge amounts of money because they were sued to allow the builders to build their beautiful 250 and up homes in that freeway right away. Then they had to buy them all back individually. Now, what we're seeing right now in all of this freeway construction and all of the delays and all of the accidents that are happening and what have you is a direct result of the foolish planning that was not done looking to the future.
Well,
was not
it's
done.
really strange that that you would have Jerry Brown try. He literally must have had some Oedipal complex, because he was undoing his father's legacy, which was to build infrastructure. He wanted to build the freeways.
Right.
He was building out the statewide water project. He knew that we needed to build the infrastructure for the mass immigration that was occurring at the time, that would certainly continue to occur, and his lack of vision, you're dead right, Lee, has led us to where we are today.
Yeah, and right now it's such a hodgepodge of things. They would have done it in a more reasonable way that wouldn't have interfered with everything, and they now have such a glut. They have to do it quickly, as opposed to stretching it out over the years. Plus, we talk about not having money to do things. Well, look at the money that is being spent now, and I'm sure they had not reserved that money from the prior appropriations that were made back in the 70s for this exact thing. They spent it all to buy back the things that they had to buy because they gave them up.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is a lack of vision. Lee, thanks for calling. We're up on a hard break here, but we will have more coming up after this break. Stay tuned. So you know what I have in my hot little hand? I don't know how little my hand is, but...
Or hot.
It's definitely hot. It's hot. It is hot today. This is a ticket to paradise. At least if you're really, really hungry.
Oh, I thought it was like Bora Bora.
No. This is good at any In-N-Out burger. Oh. It is good for a double, fries, and a Coke, or possibly, if you want to splurge and pull some money out of your pocket, a milkshake, because I don't think you can quite get that for $10, but you can get you can get one of those meals.
I think you can get the meal, substitute the shake, so no soda, and it's under 10.
You sound hungry.
I am.
Okay. Well,
I need a double before I go to the gym.
Yeah, there you go. Well, unfortunately, you can't win this. But
you're a hater.
Wow, that was cold. All right, but you who are listening can, and you know, we did this before a long time ago, but now that it has been brought up again by our erstwhile president, I want to know who can name the most mass shootings that were done by one or two people that occurred within the last 25 years, or let's say 30 years, just to be safe. So last 30 years, that occurred outside of the United States, that occurred in other developed countries or advanced countries, just to make a point. But whoever can name the most, we will take you on air, and we will do this contest from now until the bottom of the hour and see who gets the most. And we'll just see. 323-746-TALK. But for those of you who have already programmed the number into your phone, you should be able to dial faster. That is, if you're hungry. Some people I know are hungry. I thought you went to lunch today with your mom.
Yeah, that was at 11 a.m., 6 hours ago.
What did you eat, tofu or something?
No, we didn't have tofu.
This was your girl time?
Yes, my mother had the day off work, and we spent some quality twin time together.
Okay. Well, I assume you would have eaten something of some kind of substance, but
Yes, but I usually eat every 3 hours.
hey, you could make it out to L.A. and go to one of the Obama-Clinton fundraisers.
I'd rather go work out.
That's great. So Hillary Clinton, this is the headline on Breitbart. Hillary Clinton's Titanic campaign steams into California, leaking badly. That's she's got serious trouble.
That title almost concerns me.
Okay. How so?
Just keep going with your story.
Okay. Well, 2 months ago, over 70% of the public were closely following the election. Hillary Clinton's poll numbers were over 50%, 10 points over every Republican challenger, according to Rasmussen. And she commanded a 52-point lead over every conceivable Democrat challenger. But as soon as she launched her campaign, this was the initial launch, the media were already questioning her inevitability. Lead stories included Clinton the inauthentic, unhappy with Hillary. Columnist Frank Bruni attacked Clinton on Twitter for being chronically unethical, like Richard Nixon. Well, at least like how they view. And described her as psychological torture for the Democrat Party. Hillary the tormentor. And on the flip side, they've got Bernie Sanders, Bernie mania. Why is it socialist Senator Bernie Sanders so popular? I stated this earlier when we were talking to, I believe it was Victor Davis Hanson. Bernie Sanders is a true believer. He is a full self-avowed socialist. Hillary is a crony socialist. She wants to be in bed with Wall Street and then criticize Wall Street. She wants to rip down and dress down hedge fund managers as if they're some kind of evil force, while her son-in-law is a hedge fund manager millionaire, and so is her daughter, who drew a $15 million salary from the hedge fund. And it is I think it's the hypocrisy that people are just tired of. And look, you can be a hypocrite in politics, but you got to be likable. That's why Bill Clinton gets away with it. But I don't think Hillary is going to be able to make it on Bill's charm and charisma. I just don't see it. But hey, if you are listening in the LA area, and we do have listeners, I was talking to a guy the other day at a gun show that was listening on his way to LAX. I didn't know the signal went that far in our affiliate in the high desert, but I know that a lot of people listen on their phones and on the TuneIn app and stream on their computers. But if you're planning to drive anywhere in LA, just want you to know President Obama did not cancel the 4 fundraisers that he's attending. He is going to be ruining your drive home if you are anywhere in the Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, 405, 10 freeway area, and then later, Mulholland Drive, Coldwater Canyon. They've got street after street after street shut down so that Barack Obama can go raise money at the Beverly Hills home of Tyler Perry and the television Pacific Palisades home of TV producer Chuck Lorre. Over 250 people expected, and they're paying anywhere from $2,500 to $33,400. And this is the party of the little guy, right? That's what they say. We're going to take money from the 1% so we can fight the 1%. Anyway, I always find it interesting when people want to get involved in politics. Look, and that's their right. So in case you're wondering, Tobey Maguire, who's married to Jennifer Maguire, star of the Spider-Man series, he is hosting a Hillary Clinton fundraiser tomorrow, and along with a number of other lesser stars that I don't recognize, so I'm not going to read their names. But that is what the President of the United States is doing. Instead of going to Charleston, South Carolina, after the horrific shooting in a South Carolina church that ended in the deaths of 9 innocent people, all of them black Americans who were struck down by a vicious, vile, twisted, racist thug. Thug is actually too good of a word. He is just unspeakably evil. And President is saying he wants to take away your guns so you can't protect yourself against the next evil, vicious, vile thug. And I want to know what you think of that. 323-746-TALK, 323-746-TALK, or if you can name any country, or if you can name as many countries as possible, advanced countries, where mass shootings have taken place in the last 30 years. The president says it never happens anywhere but the United States because there's something wrong with us and we have too many guns. What do you think? 323-746-TALK. Person with the highest number of advanced countries accurately cited is going to have a free lunch at In-N-Out Burger. Mark from Phelan, you are on the air, and it says that you want to guess on the mass shootings committed in developed countries other than the United States.
I'd say it was Norway, where they had the guy down at the island that went over. And I'd say it's the other guy in Great Britain that shot all the people in the school, although it could have been Scotland. And I can't think of anything else right now. Okay.
Well, we will put you down as having two. Well, we're going to put you down as having two, and then we're going to see if anybody can beat you. All right?
Okay.
But thanks for listening.
Right. Thank you.
You got it.
All right.
Hey, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show. You're on air.
Yes, hi. Am I on the air?
You are live on air. What's your guess? Oh, you got to turn off your radio. Are you there, sir?
Hello?
Yeah, you got to turn off your radio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're live on air.
I walked into the other room. Okay, I just found some information out about the shooter. Apparently, he had a lot of black friends, and his beliefs changed recently in the wake of the Michael Brown, and he was aware of the white genocide in South Africa, and he was taking a lot of drugs, which made him become unhinged.
Well,
but I don't believe he was a racist. I believe he perceived there was a race war against whites.
Well, he definitely was tripping, because I've seen some photos of him, and he had a jacket on, and I thought at first it was, it looks a lot like the jacket I wear that has a little symbol of the assembly. You could also have a jacket which would have a little patch that says the NRA or something like that, and I thought perhaps that was it. But instead, he had all these flags that portrayed apartheid that were actually in support of racist governments. And individuals like this, you're not going to find a logical thread. What you're going to find is some switch was flipped in their head. They were missing some key element of humanity. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I'm really offended by all of this nonsense that's going on and all this business of using race to explain every pathology in the country and blame people who happen to be in power or who happen to be white, or this concept of white privilege. That's one thing. You can have an intellectual discussion about that. You can have a vigorous intellectual discussion. You can entertain a lot of different viewpoints. But somebody who has no ability to process that information, and somehow there's something else that's severely missing, where you would go in. I can't even imagine what it would take to go into a church and slaughter innocent people who had nothing to do with your life. There's something very, very twisted and evil in that. And
I think he had to take drugs to do it. I think that's what got him into becoming detached from humanity.
Well, I don't know, but I personally just think, since they have the killer, he's not an alleged killer. He's a killer. He's not a criminal.
Oh, he meant to do it.
And he should be taken out.
Blacks.
I think if he was taken out back in the back alley and they just shot him in the head, threw him in a dumpster, then took a picture of that and put it on the front page, that would discourage possibly the next killer who expects to get a trial, and then you have all kinds of people who are twisted, who write to you, and you go to prison for the rest of your life, and you're some kind of weird, bizarre hero in your own mind, when in fact he is a deranged.
Do the same to the blacks.
What's that?
It's 100 to 1. It was 100 to 1 homicide ratio of blacks to whites, and they don't do that to the blacks. They're dropping cinder blocks off of freeway passes and maiming whites.
Yeah, I'm not.
Coming out of restaurants on dates.
I'm not.
And
some
people are changing their beliefs because of that.
I'm not following your mindset here. If you're saying that this is in any way justified, I'm going to have to radically disagree with you, and say there is no excuse for going into a church and slaughtering innocent human beings, no matter what their race.
Violence begets violence.
Yeah,
I'm
going to have to let you go. We're not going to entertain that kind of hatred on air. There is no excuse. There is no justification. Period. At all. And it was Victor Davis Hanson who made a great point that as a society, we need to be unified. We need to be united on certain principles. And one of them is humanity. One of them is that each of us are human and we're made in God's image. And while you may not like someone, and you may have some issues with someone, or you may have issues with policies and politics, that doesn't give you the right to take innocent life. And for, I don't know who the heck, I didn't even get his name, but he clearly had a very different agenda than simply talking about the incident. That's very disturbing. It makes me want to wash my hands. Because I find he was starting to make some white supremacist arguments. And I'm sorry, you're talking to the wrong guy. I happen to be married to a woman of another race. And, this business of saying that somehow there is any justification because of violence by blacks against whites for a white to go in and kill someone. I don't know what percentage of the population relates to that, but if you do, if you're that kind of a person, don't call the show, because we will not entertain you, and we don't agree with you. And I find that kind of thinking vile and despicable and sickening. Did I say that clearly enough? I think I'm going to let you screen people. Do you think you could have ascertained that there was something really wrong with this dude?
Well, no. I mean, he originally called to say, I found out something new. But just remember, like, that other guy that told me he wanted to talk about water, and then he started talking about, I don't even know what. Yeah.
Well, no, there's no comparison there. I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying. I thought he was going to make a guess as to the...
That's what I thought.
As to the country. So far, we only have one guy, and so that would make him the winner if no one else calls in and guesses the other countries, advanced countries, that have had mass shootings in contradiction of the President of the United States, who says it never happens anywhere else but here. You know, I'm really offended by that. He's putting down our country. He, instead of saying, hey, we live in an amazing and unique and special place, he is putting down the United States as if somehow there's something wrong with us. We have our problems and we have our issues, but this is still the greatest country on the face of the earth. And we will survive this latest incident, this latest horrific, unspeakable act of evil. And we will unite against a government that wants to deprive our freedom. 323-746-TALK if you have an opinion.
Don't you think it's about time you treat yourself or someone you love to something very special? Well, A.W.R Jewelers, the finest jewelry store in the high desert, is known throughout the high desert for having the largest variety of fine-looking jewelry and gifts for every special occasion. A.W.R custom designs and manufactures their own jewelry, so you'll be able to find exclusive, one-of-a-kind, stunning styles you won't find anywhere else in Southern California. If you're looking for fine jewelry at unbeatable prices, A.W.R Jewelers is the place to go. Show appreciation to that special person in your life with something special to cherish forever. A.W.R Jewelers, voted best jewelers in the high desert by the Daily Press regularly for years. A.W.R Jewelers has been putting smiles on high desert faces for over 30 years. A.W.R Jewelers in Rancho Cucamonga, Palm Desert, and Amargosa Road by Red Lobster in Victorville. A.W.R Jewelers.
This is the Tim Donnelly Show, and we are taking your calls on the mass shootings that occurred in South Carolina. And we put a question out about, because the president just finished saying, in the middle of his comments, he interrupted himself to say, let me be clear. These kind of mass shootings don't happen in other countries, and we have the power to do something here. Philip from Murrieta, welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Oh, hi. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, thanks.
So what is your guess in terms of other countries where this has happened in the last 30 years?
Well, I don't know if anyone else has mentioned it or not, but how could he forget the horrific shooting in Norway, in Utøya Island in Norway. I think 85 people were killed by that Anders Breivik.
Yeah, it was 69, but you're on to something. Yep, that's a good one. What else you got?
That's all I got. That's one of the worst ones I can remember.
Yeah, that is right up there. There was another one in Beslan, North Tassi, which is in the Russian Federation, but it happened on September 1st, which is one of my son's birthdays, and they took over a school, and it was Chechen Islamic terrorists. So it was more than one or two gunmen, but they took over a school with the intent of killing every last person. There were 1,100 people in the school. They killed 385.
Wow.
And so, by the way, that Beslan, North Atazi, Russian Federation, that ain't the US of A, just in case you were wondering. But, Philip, thank you for your guess. You've only got one. It's a good one. But my question is, I want to know who can guess the most and name a country and an incident that is a European or advanced country where this has happened. So thanks for the call.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care.
We've got Liz from Palmdale. Hi, Liz. Welcome to the Tim Donnelly Show.
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Okay, let's hear them.
Okay, I come from Australia, so let me start there. And
yes.
There was December 15th, 2014, just this past year. Not even. Then we have Canada, Belgium, UK, France, not once but several times, Denmark, the Netherlands, Russia, and we can't forget Canada.
Well, that's pretty good. Now, can you tell me what happened in Canada? Give me just the sketch.
Okay, in Canada, I believe a couple of policemen were attacked. Yeah, they're actually troopers.
Okay.
Stationed, I guess, were at Parliament, and they were attacked by
right.
terrorists.
That is correct. Yeah, and it was one of the Mounties, right, that took him out.
Mm-hmm.
It was an armed security sergeant at arms, and he was a dead shot. He was a crack shot. And then how about Belgium? We know France. We all know France, right?
Yeah. Well, as I said, there was more than one in France, but in Belgium, I believe a gunman opened up in a Jewish synagogue, or no, museum.
Let's see. Yeah, I've got a couple of them in Belgium. And then you said the UK.
Right. Okay, Denmark, France, Netherlands.
What happened in the Netherlands?
In the Netherlands, okay. Let's see. A filmmaker was attacked, Theo Van Gogh, who was shot, stabbed, and slashed across the throat. I think he offended some Muslims or something. And so it was one of them who took him out, yeah.
Well, Liz, I got to hand it to you. You definitely have more than anyone else has come up with. And it's it's sad actually to hear to recount these, because I don't want them to happen in other countries any more than I want them to happen here. I don't want them to happen at all. And the only way I know to prevent it is to allow people to arm themselves, to not get in the way of allowing people to exercise their fundamental natural right to defend their own lives. That is a natural law. That is a fundamental right that comes to us from the Creator who gave us life. And
Right.
it is something that the government acknowledged in the founding of this country. It's something that we stand for here at the Tim Donnelly Show. Liz, I think you've got the most. You've clearly done your research, and you're aware of them, and your research bears out what mine did. I actually didn't even have recent ones. I found this Reuters July 2012 story, and it had the past 25 years going back from July 20th of 2012. And I couldn't believe how many of these incidents had occurred that we never even talk about, because when things happen in Europe, we really don't care. It's just the way Americans are. And I guess the president must, maybe he only watches TV. I don't know. But you're the winner. I'm gonna have you. I'm gonna have Bethany call you right after the show, and she'll make arrangements to get you your gift certificate to In-N-Out Burger so you can enjoy a free lunch. Thanks for calling the show. Congratulations.
All right. Bye.
Well, there you have it. It pays to listen to the Tim Donnelly Show. That's all I got to say. Because sometimes you'll win free stuff, cool stuff. We're not like some of these other boring talk shows where they drone on and on and on about things. We want to hear from you. And if you're as offended as I am that our president interrupted his remarks, it was like he was in a hurry. Did you pick up on that? It was as if he was in a rush to get out of the room, get on his plane and get to his fundraisers, rather than take the time to properly represent the feeling of all Americans. He is not just president of those who want gun control. Whether you like it or not, he's your president. He's my president. And I was offended that he went straight into talking about gun control again. 323-746-TALK. I'd love to know what you think. 323-746-8255. Well, even though the mass shooting in Charleston is dominating the headlines, we do need to get back to exactly what was being spoken about over the break. The TPA, the Trade Promotion Authority, which then the reason to create the authority to promote trade and fast track it has passed. It passed the House this afternoon. It is on its way to the Senate, and this fight that lies before us. And yes, I know I have such unlikely allies like Nancy Pelosi. By the way, we tried to get her on the show. Did you know that?
No.
And she said no.
What?
I'm a little hurt. I mean, come on.
Hurt. Does she know how cool we are?
I don't think she does. I don't know if she is a listener of the Tim Donnelly Show. We're going to continue to try to get her on because she is speaking for those of us who are absolutely against giving President Obama and giving any president unlimited powers a massive increase in powers to negotiate in secret, and then this is the part where they claim that they've made this process all transparent. Yeah, it all becomes transparent afterwards. And then the Congress has to vote it up or down. They can't amend it. They can't fix it. They can't stop it. They can't force a real discussion. And you know who loses? It's always the little guy. It's always the mom and pop businesses. It's always the person who's not in a union, who has just been working hard, playing by the rules, and doing everything right their whole lives. They get screwed by these deals. We saw it with NAFTA. I was in the manufacturing sector for 20 years. I remember this was the very first time I was really tremendously interested as an adult in politics. Yes, I voted when I turned 18. And yes, I had a lot of fun because I voted for Ronald Reagan in his second term in 1984. And there were a couple of young liberals across the hall from me. And yes, I will admit I played Fleetwood Mac's Landslide really, really loud that night over and over and over again. Okay. But that's different than having a presidential candidate who sort of swept me off my feet, much like Donald Trump is sweeping people off their feet right now. But for me, it was Ross Perot. And I wish I could do a Ross Perot voice. He had such a distinctive voice. And he would say, you know, we just... This NAFTA is just a giant sucking machine. It's just gonna suck up all our jobs and send them south of the border. And he was right. I know it because I was in the manufacturing sector, and I watched companies, great American companies, move across the border. And now they no longer hired Americans; they hired Mexican citizens, which is fine. Except that we lost those jobs. We lost them in huge numbers. And we never gained anything. There was never any win-win for the average American in that trade deal. I don't mind making trade deals that are good for both countries. I would love to see us do something significant with our second largest trading partner in the world, which is Mexico. But we don't. We never do anything that makes any sense on trade. And this is no exception. And Ross Perot was right. And maybe this time people will listen. We've got a Donald Trump. He has been outspoken. He has been dead on, spot on when he talks about these idiotic negotiations that Obama has made with other countries, that the Congress has participated in. And it's time that we have somebody who actually knows how to negotiate and negotiate in the interests of the people of the United States, not just the rich people. And one thing I do like about Donald Trump is the fact he is horribly rich or incredibly rich or happily rich, whatever you want to call it. He's not going to be owned by anybody. And he clearly isn't going to be silenced or muzzled. That dude is going to say whatever's on his mind, and he'll provide entertainment, but he also will shake things up, and I believe he's going to be in this race. And I'm not so sure about having Oprah Winfrey as a running mate, but
She runs?
Oh, I'm sure he's friends with her.
No, I said she runs. You called her a running mate.
Well, yeah, she would be his VP.
I know. Come on, Tim.
Oh, you were making a fitness joke. Okay. Got it.
It's almost 6.
Yeah, well, yes. I actually think someone like Ben Carson might be better suited to be a running mate. But what do I know? You know, I'm just a guy from Twin Peaks. But in the end, I think I'm excited. I think he brings us hope. I think he brings us some radical ideas which are missing. I mean, I'm getting tired of listening to 12 boring politicians try to out-politician one another. It just puts you to sleep. And none of these guys are really shaking things up. Donald Trump is the only one who I believe will say, he'll just say it the way it is. And that is that. But so the bad news is the TPA has passed the House. It is on its way to the Senate. We will be following up on Monday. We will bring you phone numbers you can call. This is it might have a tougher time. I'm not. I know they passed it before, so they'll probably pass it again. But I think the debate will be more informed, and certainly this is going to be one of those major issues that are going to redefine how we do business in the world. So you have a lot at stake, even if it may seem like something that's far away and doesn't affect you. But we'll keep you up with the latest, and of course we'll bring you any new facts on this mass shooting. I'm sure people are going to pour into the social media and the background of this deranged, evil psychopath that decided to slaughter 9 innocent human beings in a church of all places in Charleston, South Carolina. Our thoughts and prayers go out to them. I do not do this show alone. I want to thank my wife for letting me. I want to thank Bethany Nosko, the Noskanator, for being an extraordinary producer. Cassie Cassidy, my intrepid guest booker, who, by the way, has Taya Kyle coming next week, and Morgan Brittany will be sitting in and guest hosting with me, and Sean, who takes care of our stream and all the technology. He is a technological wizard. John, who is a consultant, and you, the listener, because without you, we don't have a show. So God bless you and Godspeed. We will see you 3 o'clock, same station. Tim Donnelly Show, out.